I would turn to Mr. Billington to speak first. Have you got the microphone? It's here. There we go.
Thank you. Yes. Are we on? Hello?
Should be. Let's have a look. Somebody turned it off.
Thank you. Yes, I do understand the question, and the tragedies in the Mediterranean Sea are going to keep on occurring. Europe needs to get its act together and sort out some kind of system and control measure to stop those severely poor people coming over from North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. The trickle now is a trickle, and those that get through have really come a long, long way and deserve all the help we can give them. But it's going to get worse and worse unless governments organise almost a European standard of immigration control. You know as well as I do that space is limited, resources are limited, money is limited. Maybe the European Central Bank could organise a system to go to the countries that are sending their people over here or who are paying traffickers to come over and sort out the trafficking problem itself. That would take massive coordination, but it would be money well spent by the European Union. But somehow I don't think they're going to do it. We are appalled in UKIP at these tragedies. We want to help, but a structure, a barrier, some control measures are needed for the sake of those people. Thank you.
Let me just press you. The questioner asked what affected your party's policy. You've just said how terrible it was. How does it affect your immigration policy?
Thank you.
Your policy towards Europe?
I touched on that when I used the word control. At the
Would
moment,
you like to say what control you envisage?
the control is that there is no control at the moment. So if UKIP were in control of this situation, we would be in Libya and in North Africa sorting the situation out on the ground. You can't sort it out on a boat on the Mediterranean Sea. That's too late. You can't sort it out on Lampedusa. You've got to get over there to Libya and sort out the problem in that country with controllers and measures.
Okay. Thank you. I turn to Alan Duncan.
I'm slightly astonished by the fact that it now seems to be UKIP policy to invade Libya.
I didn't mean that at all.
Even if it's a benign invasion, the fact that this issue is a very... I think this is the biggest question we've had tonight. Because I think that it embraces so many of the dangers of the world, the difficulties of policy, and the problems of, if you like, looking after the interests of a nation, that at the moment, it's insoluble. Priority number one, if you've got people on a boat that's going underwater, you rescue those people, and humanity comes first. That's point number one. Point number two, the world is an increasingly dangerous place. Most of these people who are coming to Lampedusa are not Libyans, they're coming from Sub-Saharan Africa. Because of all the other difficulties in those problems, which I admit development has not solved. We try to introduce stability to countries who don't have these movements of people, but that is what is happening in the world. Point number three, the immigration debate is the most stale and badly argued issue in British politics. The word immigration means everything, therefore it means nothing. Do you mean students coming over? Do you mean people coming to work? Do you mean people who want to come to work from within the EU? Or do you mean asylum seekers? Until you disentangle the word immigration and talk about it sensibly, it means absolutely nothing. And there is no way it can be properly discussed. And the big issue is if the country's at war. Syria is a great example. To what extent are we, as a humane, decent country, obliged to take massive numbers in order to get them out of harm's way? And the answer is it's very difficult. We don't have the housing, the infrastructure, the education. So our obligation has to be limited. The question is how limited should it be? And in the case of Syria, and again where I was the minister, we have spent £700 £200 million trying to help those inside Syria and those who have gone to Lebanon and Jordan because of the civil war, so that they don't have to move to another country, because the one thing they want to do is to go back to their own country if they possibly can. And so this is not an issue which can be treated in simplistic, emotional terms in a sort of partisan political way. It's the biggest issue facing the world, and it's insoluble, but it's going to have to be approached as best we can with a budget, with money and compassion over the next few years.
Mr. Hudson?
Yeah, I have to say I do agree with Alan on that one. It is one of the most serious issues that we are facing in Europe, and some of the pictures have been truly shocking of these fishing boats being laden with people and actually capsizing because the sheer volume of people from running one side of the ship to the other. I think it has to be a coordinated approach with the European Union, and it is something that it's very important that we continue to play our part in trying to focus and coordinate action, because there are certain countries in the southern part of the European, Italy, Greece, Malta, etc., are right in the front line for this. And I think Alan's analysis is right, that a lot of the people who are coming, particularly from Syria, are not wanting to stay. They actually want to go back home. They can't go back home. And there are issues to do with regional conflict, and we are facing an incredible security threat from ISIS in both Iraq, Syria, and now even increasingly in Libya. So it can never be underestimated what the threat is that we actually face in terms of security, but what is that causing an effect on the people who are trying to flee these countries. More money does need to be invested in helping these people, and it is a simple law of the sea, as Alan correctly identified. If a boat or a ship is in distress, you go and rescue it, no matter what. You don't leave people stranded at sea. There's an international code that dictates that. Anybody who's been in the Merchant Navy or the Royal Navy knows about that. It is incredibly important that we do work with the European Union, particularly to tackle organised crime. I was quite staggered. I was listening to a news report this evening, and the BBC managed to get an interview with a people smuggler who was boasting about how lucrative it was to actually smuggle these people across, and they're paying, £1,500, £2,000 per person to come on an unsafe, unseaworthy boat. It is a complete disgrace, and the European Union needs to face up to this, and governments need to take more action and come up with a coordinated policy. The Italian Navy had their Mare Nostrum operations ceased last year. It was replaced by Frontex, which is underfunded, not properly resourced. We would like to contribute more, and indeed I believe HMS Bulwark has actually departed home for to go and help out. But it is really important that the European Union take a lead on this and coordinate with all nations, and it is too serious an issue to store political points over.
Mr. McQuillan.
It is a serious issue, it really is. The numbers are quite staggering. If carrying on the rate they are currently, would be up to 300,000 people drowning on the shores of Europe by the end of this year. It's a terrible situation, which is why the Green Party opposed the Conservative-led support, basically, of stopping that Italian mission by withdrawing the Italian Coast Guard ships back in November. Caroline Lucas stood up in Parliament and said it would be inevitable that people will drown. That was obvious from the policy, and the Conservative government was in full favour, supported by the Lib Dems, of withdrawing that funding. Not just a little bit. We're not talking 10%, an 80% cut in the funding, and that was shameful. That was shameful. That was leaving people to drown. On the wider point of migration, I'd just like to say, we can do a lot in this country, but we reject as the Green Party the idea of an open borders approach. That's not our policy. But we also say an arbitrary cap on migration is also wrong. We've got to reduce the pressures on people, forcing them to migrate. We can do a lot more in our world. We can do a lot more to help people, so they don't have to be forced out of countries like Eritrea, out of countries like Sudan, out of countries like Syria, where there is war, destroying these places. we have to have a joined-up approach. It's not a case of doing one thing and doing another. It's a case of coming together and actually coming up with real workable solutions. And that means increasing the funding for that operation, certainly. Picking people out of the sea is key. We can't leave them to drown. But then also coming together with our European partners and working out how we do more. Britain doesn't take its fair share by any stretch in terms of asylum seekers from the European Union. Our numbers are tiny when you compare them to other places. So we can do more and we must do more.
I won't say much because I broadly agree with the last speaker. Just to underline that, the Mare Nostra programme effectively is a comprehensive search and rescue programme for most of that particular region. And what happened was essentially it was changed, so effectively it was reduced to an Italian coastal patrol. Now that clearly was never going to be acceptable. It was never going to work. There were plenty of people in Italy who told you it wasn't going to work. The Democratic Party in Italy insistently spoke out against this. I know the Communist Free Foundation also spoke out against this. There were plenty of people actually on the ground who were saying this was a foolish strategy. It's clearly failed. The EU has now got to up its game. And we can't just leave it to Italy. I mean, David Cameron was best to say the other day that, well, essentially, if Royal Navy ships pick essentially migrants up, then we'll simply tear up the rules of the sea, we'll tear up the immigration rules, we'll just send them to Italy and get them to sort it out. That's not viable. We've got an international, European-wide migration problem. And one of the reasons why I'm such a strong supporter of the European Union is that we can only sort out these problems by coordinating European action. We can't just dump it on other countries. So let's work together, sort it out, and start saving lives.
On the justice, that's that. I know you're a legal person.
Thank you. Yes, for me, I would say everybody whose lives are at risk, they should seek safety wherever they can. And we're all broadly agreeing with that. And also that we should rescue anybody coming over here in the Mediterranean. Anybody that's in difficulties, with the recent situations with people drowning, and that obviously we should go out and rescue. Another thing that I was thinking as well, because I think that all countries, as we've said, all countries should all come together to help deal with this problem, and everybody should take the fair share. Even if it's just a ratio, just depending on the size of the country as well, and what kind of, who they can take. But I do believe that something more can be done. But talking about immigration, I believe that there's so many skills coming into this country now that we could create jobs, and I would like to see the government do that, because we have the people and it will certainly raise the economy. And I think this is something that we've really, really got to tap into. And this is something that I'm really passionate about, that we do create jobs. These people are coming in and they want to work. They want to work. And I think that we can do something about that. We can create jobs and get them working, and the economy will just go up. Thank you.
We want to finish by 9, so are there any comeback? Because,
Yes.